Now, it's Pace of Play.
Come on, Glenn! Come on! Get your head in the damn game!
Putting the boys on the clock.
I guess we're playing for keeps now.
The fuck?
All right, everybody, welcome back to the 19th All Weekend Edition. Time for Pace of Play. And first, before we get, what do you call this, Lee? When am I got back?
That's called a snapback.
A snapback. That's what I thought. All right, not a snap bean, but a snapback.
No,
I like
snapback,
that.
yep.
Very snappy. All right, you know the season is kicked off in Hawaii, windy and rainy. The tour officials there, the rules tour officials, actually, Lee, are working without a contract this week. There's a lot of disagreements between
and we're front and center yesterday.
And we're front and center yesterday between the union and the actual officials. Of course, this is nothing new. All of the major sports have had the same problem over the years. Do you think this is really any big deal? And as far as pay, do you think these guys should get the same amount or even more than some of the other officials in some of the other leagues like, football, like basketball, like hockey? Personally, I don't, because let's face it, how hard do they work? They don't work very hard at all, these guys. And I think what they're making, they should be pretty happy with that, period, end of case.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. And I don't think they do. If you reading a couple of those articles, I think they're just trying to get into the ballpark. It's interesting. The PGA Tour officials out of 5 years of service make an average of $103,000 a year. Major League Baseball makes $133,000. NBA officials make $124,000. NHL makes $202,000.
Yeah.
Now they got to learn how to skate,
right?
So
and they're in the line of fire.
Yeah, that's right.
The most dangerous thing a tour official's got to worry about is tipping over a golf cart, for crying out loud, or the battery going dead in his walkie-talkie. These guys don't bust their hump at all.
Yeah, I think where the respect should be given is that this is a back page story. And they've kept it a back page story by not going on strike. They're working without a contract, and I think they should be respected for that, which is something that hopefully the tour takes into account. Hey, we've never talked about this on the show, but we do get a lot of feedback, whether it's online or any of our listeners, about broadcasters. Throughout all of the networks and the Golf Channel and ESPN, everybody at TNT, everybody that carries golf, who are your favorite broadcasters that do golf, and who are your least favorite?
Boy, that's put me in between. I'll tell you one of my favorites, and I've always said this from the beginning. I like Johnny Miller. I like Johnny Miller because he's been at it a long time. He's gotten pretty good at his craft. Obviously, he's very, very knowledgeable, knows these guys, kind of tells it like it is, got the reputation for, sticking his foot in his mouth.
And Johnny Miller
I like that.
Is a polarizing figure. You either love Johnny Miller or you can't stand Johnny Miller, for the most part.
Yeah. The guys like, the guy, and a lot of them else do a good job, but, to be honest with you, guys like Gary McCord, Faraday, those type of people, I think personally, after a while, they kind of grate me. They get a little over the top. They try to be too funny. They try to be too cute. But Johnny Miller, I think for the most part, does a very, very fine job.
I think for me, I'm big fans of Frank Nobilo. I think Nobilo does a great job. I think Ian Baker Finch does a great job of not going over the edge, but has the history and experience to really speak from.
See, I disagree. I think he's weak.
A knowledgeable
if he says one more time, right in the mayor's office, I'm going to throw up. I think he's weak.
See, I like some of that.
I think he's overpaid for what he does.
I like some of that verbiage. Well, I don't know how much he gets paid, but
too much.
But I like his verbiage, and I can't discount his accent. I like those accents. I got to give him to that. The one that gets me, and I like him as a person, but not a big fan of Brandel Chambly.
I am not.
Almost the frat boy kind of, and then the flock of seagulls hair that he's got going sometimes when it's a little too long.
They got to get the wide angle camera on him. Yeah,
kind of gets
I
to me.
with
but
you.
I like at least judging him.
You mentioned it earlier in the show. A lot of movement this week about some of the stars on tour making equipment changes, going from one club company to another or one apparel company to the other. most notably recently Rory McIlroy, our very own Nick Watney, Kyle Stanley. Who do you think this is going to hurt or help the most in some of the guys that have made this move?
Well, and in full transparency, the Rory McIlroy thing is out there. Nike hasn't announced it. He's not going to. Sounds like he's not going to play the equipment until Dubai, which is in the middle of January.
Right.
So to when it becomes official. But I think everybody knows that that's going to happen. You know, I don't think in this day and age that we're going to see a Payne Stewart, Lee Janzen, Steve Stricker struggles with new equipment. Just because technology has come so far, the ability to make custom clubs for these companies similar to what they had, and I think the practice that players have put in behind the scenes before they put anything in the bag with the equipment that they're changing to, I don't think it's really going to affect anybody drastically. If somebody has a poor year, I think it's just because they played bad. It's not necessarily going to be the equipment. A couple of surprises to me, though. I was surprised that Stewart Cink. You know, Stewart was a Nike guy through and through, and really felt like he identified with that brand. Him going to TaylorMade is surprising, and it's never surprising with our local Ryan Moore switching any
up.
company. So it's good to see him. With
you have
the
some
brand
valid
now.
points, but I think of all of the people that have really made the change, oddly enough, I think world number one might be affected more than anybody, going from Titleist to Nike. It's a different club. It's a different look. It's a different feel, even though they're custom made for these guys. I think it's going to be interesting to see if he settles in.
Well, now I remember a host of this show one time saying these guys could play well with broomsticks.
That's pretty much true.
But you know, I think it'll be an adjustment period. But
no doubt.
Like I said, he's been working with his equipment. There's been talks of him down in Fort Worth, Texas, at the Oven. So I don't think there's much of a change there.
Yeah.
So we talk about world number one, and I know last week we talked a little bit about some players having better years and good years. Let's talk about rookies.
Okay.
And let's make a prediction on Rookie of the Year for 2013. Who you got? Why do you think they're going to play well?
I've got actually two guys. One of the guys that's been a stalwart on the European Tour, hits it off the end of the earth. A really good player is Ross Fisher, who went through Q School, who's decided to play the American Tour full-time from England. And I also think a great young kid coming up would not surprise me is Billy Horschel. Got a lot of talent.
Yeah. No, I agree. I'm going to go with somebody that I think has been around, proven himself on lower tours. But, you know, names such as this Ben Coles, who came out, won his first event on the web.com. Obviously Russell Henley, we saw him in a couple of majors and doing well on the web.com tour, but Luke Guthrie, you know, I think Luke Guthrie is really going to have a breakout year. And obviously, you know, reaching the PGA Tour through playing the web.com a full season and gaining his card. I mean, this guy seems like like a for sure hit on the PGA Tour.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Our next thing is about fantasy golf. I know personally you are into it big time. I am really not into it. So to be honest with you, I'm not familiar with all of the players that are available for fantasy picks. But if I were to, and I had the chance to pick somebody as my number one guy, if available, again, I'd have to go to somebody like Ross Fisher. I don't know who all you picked.
Yeah, it's I'm involved in a couple of different fantasy golf things, and the formats change. I'm involved in one where there's a buy-in and you have a salary cap and you get 32 guys and you never have to touch it the rest of the year and your guys stay the same. I've had good years and bad years in that particular thing. I'm also in a Yahoo Fantasy Golf, which is you pick 8 guys every week. You pick 4 players that are your starters and 4 on your bench, and you can alternate them after every round. This is my first time in that, so I'm not sure how I'm going to keep up with that every single week. But, you know, I think guys that are going to have good years, obviously last week I talked about Stewart Cink, I think is going to be a guy that is going to have a better year than maybe where he's rated. I'm really bullish on Jonas Blixt. I think Jonas Blixt is, even though his clubs didn't arrive in Hawaii, United Airlines messed that up. But I think Jonas Blixt is going to have a great year, and I don't see how you can't play Rory McIlroy every single time out. So,
I agree with you.
As much as possible.
Well, you know what you're going to have to do to have more time to devote to this new fantasy league is probably take less naps.
That's probably true.
Probably
hey, last
thing.
question.
Yeah.
We've got obviously college football game of the year, BCS championship coming up on Monday. Alabama, Notre Dame. Who you got?
Crimson Tide.
Wow, that was easy. I'm going to go. Go ahead, Mark.
Wow.
And I'm not a big Notre Dame fan.
No, you're not.
And I'll be honest with you, I'm not even sure I'm going to take Notre Dame to win.
Really?
But I'm going, because it's Las Vegas, I am going to take
You're
Notre
gonna do
Dame to
that?
cover.
Yeah. All right.
I'm going to take Notre Dame to cover.
So your Irish is coming out then, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's
all
right.
right. His Irish is coming out. All right. That's going to wrap it up for this edition of Pace of Play. Stay with us. We're going to step away, come back, and we're going to wrap up the show.